At least 125 people died in a crash at an Indonesian football match that has become one of the worst football stadium disasters. This was during a game between two rival clubs at the home of Arema FC. The crash took place after police tear gas fans who had invaded the pitch. That's how we start the second segment of NTV Sport Nights. And because we find this a very important and serious topic, we have an eminent panel to discuss stadium safety in Uganda. Many times as an individual, I've gone to stadiums for a large part of the past 31 or so years. But I don't know how I always get home because they are not properly manned. But I'm very lucky, I get home. There is a lady and gentleman. Seated right next to me is Lona Akeu. Lona is the head of security and matchday experience at KCCFC. Welcome, Lona, to NTV Sport Night.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And next to her is Jamil Sewanyana. He's the managing director of Nambole Stadium, which is currently closed. Good evening. What are you managing?
Good evening. We are managing a stadium.
And at the extreme left is Dixon Okello, also referred to as James Bond. He's a CAF and FIFA safety and security officer and trainer. I hope I got that right. Good evening, Dixon.
Good evening, Isma. Thanks for having us here.
Yeah. Finally, you make it to the show, Dixon. Every time we've had a discussion, you're somewhere in Qatar, you're somewhere in Cameroon, you survived the battering in Abuja. Yeah? But anyway, let's start. When, as football people, and you all work at the gates, you ensure that fans get into stadiums and go home safely. And I want to start with Dixon. Your reaction to that story. You've been to the biggest tournaments across the world. Then you see such an incident in Indonesia. What immediately comes to your mind?
Well, as safety and security officers, we always expect such things to happen if you don't plan well. So my first reaction was perhaps there was a breakdown in the chain of command. Then obviously there must have been a reaction from the security forces that were deployed. So those are the two things that really...
That come to your mind
yes,
first?
Absolutely, yes.
Jamil, Indonesia may sound distant, but their kind of audience is not so different from ours. And the football audience is not very different across the world.
That's true. For me, it was very unfortunate because sometimes when we watch TV or when we are watching football, we imagine ourselves in those situations. So it's very unfortunate. Of course, when you read from what you've heard, I think there were some shortcomings. So it's really unfortunate. 125, they said about 300 are injured. Yeah. It's really unfortunate. I think those are pointers for the managers there of safety and security in the stadium and the country to step up their game.
Lona, you must be the newest in the game. I don't want to use the word youngest because that can be very subjective. The newest from all the three. As someone involved with this kind of things on a routine basis, on a weekly basis, organizing and hosting fans, when you see such an incident, might sound very distant, but it's not that far from you. Sure. What do you think of something like that happening?
It was very unfortunate, like he mentioned. And the moment I read and saw the story, it definitely just took me straight to the stadium. I kept wondering if something like this happened to KCCA, what would I possibly do? But being the club that we are, we at least have a few things in place that we would help us really avoid something like that. But that was really, really sad.
I want to stick with you. While the incident in Indonesia is happening in, and we're hoping to get some of the pictures there, is happening in a much bigger stadium than you have.
True.
What kind of things go into planning at a club like KCCA before a game?
Normally what we do, we have a pre-match meeting with what we call, we have some people called the bouncers, the police, then we have non-uniform security officers. Now we use such people to stand within the funds to avoid such things, because obviously such things start from somewhere, from someone, an individual. So if we get such people and put them within the funds, it helps. And the pre-match meeting is to guide everyone on what to do, what roles to play in case of anything like a stampede. But we've been lucky, so far we haven't had anything like that, but majorly because of the precautions we take.
Yeah, and you know, Dixon, I've seen you use a lot of your Facebook to communicate, and I always see you go out very widely, and those pictures should be showing what happened in Indonesia, because it was extremely sad when the incident broke up. Actually, the home team had lost their rivals for the first time in 23 years. So the home fans were so angry and walking the stadium. This is how the police responds, with all this tear gas, and then there is a stampede and people are rushing for the exits, and some of the tear gas were thrown at the exit. Reminds me of riots at Makerere, where police threw tear gas in the halls of residents where we're running to. And sometimes I'm thinking, are they even being? So eventually, 125 people lost their lives, and several. Dixon, I want to refer to what I was saying. On your Facebook, you always go after these clubs about for them not training stewards and not investing in the safety at these stadiums. And then the other week, you posted something giving one of the clubs a lot of credit, Vipers, for that game between Olympic de Bangui, that you've not been to a stadium for a club and found a club that organized to allow people in and out of a stadium. What exactly is the axe you have to grind with the clubs out there organizing their things?
Well, I think the first thing our clubs need to know, and the FA, is that CAF and FIFA are insisting that we don't want to see armed police officers around the field of play, around the pitch. So we have a system in Africa where most countries still rely on the police to man security. So they're insisting we need to train stewards. And like I said, KCCA and Vipers are one of the clubs that have really managed to train stewards and deploy them, which is very, very impressive. Another issue is that we've also discussed with FIFA that we need to involve all stakeholders in issues regarding security. Because the way our police mans security, you're not going to, it's not about public management, how do you call it, public
order management.
Yes, the way you have to go and enforce an order and beat up people. You know, you need to plan, because there's a big difference between safety and security. Safety is that you plan, put everything in order, you know, barriers, how people come in, the zones where, you know, you cannot access the zone, stewards directing people to the right seats, tickets that are numbered and you know where to go. So all these things are supposed to be put in place. That's why we're saying we need to have all stakeholders involved in the management of stadium safety and security. And that's why we're saying FIFA should get involved, clubs should get involved.
What is it that Vipers did very well that impressed you the most?
Vipers, like KCCA, we trained our sister here as a safety and security officer of FIFA. We trained Viper Security, we trained several security officers in Nambole, perhaps to about more than 30. But these people have taken it a better initiative to really to put things in place. Whatever we train them, they've put it in place. And that's why we're very thankful. They've known how to deploy, they've known how to, you know, plan for security prior to the match. They've known how to engage all stakeholders, get stewards involved. That's what we wanted the clubs to follow, from KCCA and Vipers.
Jamil, you manage a stadium whose plan was drawn in the 1970s. Am I right?
It's the design.
The design is from the 1970s.
The designs, yes.
Your designs are from the 1970s.
That's true.
When you look at this incident, and I want to play those pictures again from Indonesia, could it be about the structural flaws of stadiums that do not match a present-day football fan? Or in case you have such a crisis of funds and something, is it about the structural flaws of some of these stadiums?
When it comes to safety and security, and specifically when you're looking at crowd management, with stadiums that are coming up, the latest stadiums, there is what we call the DIM, the design, information and management. So design is very critical in terms of managing the crowd's safety. For example, if you look at Nambole, those stairs, the wideness of the stairs, the flights, even the gates, they are designed according to figures that are calculated. For example, at each of the turnstiles per hour, you'd expect to have like 660 people per hour at all the gates. So for Nambole, where you have about 34, you would have maybe about 27,000 people in an hour coming in. And then those big gates and the stair, the flights, you'd have to exit about 800 people within, per flight of stairs, within 8 minutes. So the design is very important. I saw in one of the pictures for the Indonesian stadium, they showed a very narrow door, which the fans were trying to break through. And they even showed a window which they had to break and go through. So probably, I don't know when it was constructed, but I think that was also a challenge. That the design, when it came to the exit, it was really a challenge. If you saw in the video, the fans first ran to one end, then they were chased to another end, which means there were some limitations in terms of the exit. And they couldn't even hold those 3,000 also fans within the pitch. So the design is very critical as far as safety and security is concerned.
Go to Twitter and join the conversation. Use NTV_Spotnights. So the hashtag is NTV Spotnights, and tell us what you think about everything we are discussing on the show this evening, including that very important topic about safety and security. A few years ago, I did a story about some of these tragedies, and one of those I think I was attached to because I've spoken to a journalist, was the incident at Ellis Park, I think 2001, in Johannesburg. I had a chance to see the stadium actually this year for the first time, to see Ellis Park, and the nostalgia about the violence that was there back then. And then because of this story, I think everyone has gone up now and dug some information. Then there was an incident in Accra between Hearts of Oak and Kumasi FC, I think.
126 people.
126. Almost the same number. Eventually, who died in this kind of tragedy. So when you would imagine that this could be another football fan just like me and you.
True.
And Lona, when as clubs, are you doing anything in terms of educating your fans? Because it may not be enough to have batons and to spray people with colored water or pink something. Are you as a club doing more than just that through the KCC, the KCC fans platform?
Yes, we are. We have what they call the executive, the KCC. So this executive helps us identify such people. Of course, the ones we call hooligans, or the ones who would start such things. They help us identify these people, and once we identify you are the one person who causes mess at the stadium, we normally ban such people, because all this, I believe, normally starts from one person. So we get that person out. You are banned. Last time we did it for 2 years. A few fans whose names I won't mention, but we banned them for 2 years. And now they're in line.
You to mention them, okay.
No. They are now in line. So the rest of them got the communication. So it will be so hard for you to see such things
happen at the club. Dixon, you know, last week there was a meeting between Express and Villa fans at Wankolo Koko. Were you invited?
No, I wasn't, but I was very much encouraged, because what we're trying to do even at CAF and FIFA level is that we try to engage the fan leaders. Once you engage them and tell them, you know what, we need you to work with the police, we need you to work with the security, we need you to work with the stewards, they will tend to respect you, because they're highly respected people. So what we normally do is that they are the ones who go and talk to the fans in case they're getting rowdy, and we always tell them, fine, if we feel that a particular fan is going beyond what is acceptable, then we request the fan leaders to work with the stewards to have the person taken out. So these fan meetings are very, very encouraging. I'm also impressed when Express did that. I was impressed by Villa. KCC is doing the same thing. We need to constantly engage the fans.
When are you engaging Kataka?
Kataka, I was in Bali last week.
Yeah.
They have a very big problem with Bali Heroes, but we talked to them.
You were in Mbale for the FUFA drum game between Bogiso and Nango?
I was an observer. I was an observer, but I also volunteered when things were kind of getting out of hand. Yes, but I'm happy. They'll get together. They'll work together.
Jamil, these days I've seen you being engaged a lot by FUFA because you manage a stadium and you'll be one of the first people. What exactly are you people doing? Now I'm asking you a bit like your FUFA, because I've seen you try. I've seen pictures, and we must play some of those videos.
Yes.
Or, for example, Dixon in Lira training people ahead of a drum, and I know you're doing the same kind of work.
Yes.
What exactly is the message? It's not enough to tell people that there are 3 results in football, so expect any of them. That's not enough. We all know that. What exactly are you doing?
What we are doing is, first of all, we are building capacity locally in the country. We started by training club safety and security officers. Now, following that, we've had the regional FAs training. For example, Kelo was in Lira. He also went to Mbale.
Yeah.
So we've gone to that extent where the federation has also come on board to train the local personnel, because you can't only have safety officers, you also need stewards. So this round of training that you've seen is training for stewards, because each club, each stadium at least should have stewards. You know, a steward is one steward to 250. So you can see how many people you need in a stadium. So we are creating we are nurturing a culture of safety in the clubs and in the league in this country.
Now, in case something like that happened, Lona, at a club like KCCA, what are the mitigating factors? Do we have ambulances, the kind of emergency services? These days I was telling someone that I'd not go to places on Saturday night that do not have an ambulance because I don't feel safe. Actually, if I walked into a place and I wasn't checked, I would rather leave. Because then I don't feel the same kind of assurance being in that kind of place. Now, besides what happens in the stadium, and I've seen with him, with Dixon, many of the places he goes to, where there's a time when we were on this show and discussing the time he was at the Arab Cup.
Yeah.
The Arab Cup in Qatar, which was a bit of a training exercise.
This was Cameroon now.
Yeah, that is Cameroon for the AFCON. Would that put me down? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're training stewards and security officers in Cameroon.
Yeah.
These are the stewards we used in Cameroon.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking, I don't see how I go down because of that.
You're not fit. You're not fit. You're not fit. Yeah. So,
and I want Andrew to join the conversation at some point in the next few minutes, because I want him to join this. So he should be getting ready. But Lona, now the emergency services.
Yes, we do have an ambulance on standby always. We make sure that the gates are free of any blockages. Like, we make sure we don't have any cars parked in the gates just in case we have such.
In the direct where they get. But you know,
yes.
I'll give you an experience. On Saturday, I came to Lugogo to watch the game. And I had children. The eldest whom is 11, and the others are younger. And the parking was quite undesirable. I know, because there's the Uma Trade Fair, and I think companies were loading up things at the time. But right outside the gates, not exactly where the cars would pass, but they were parked double, so the road was narrower, and the stadium was full. The ground, Lugogo, was full on Saturday. And it was quite cumbersome to get through that area, especially now after the game. And your people maybe at the gate have to be very cautious that maybe as early as the 70th minute, the gate should be open for someone who wants to leave, something like that.
Yeah, this time around we had a bit of a challenge, majorly because, like you mentioned, because of the Uma showground. But normally what we do, we get in talks with our neighbors. Also, we have parking space the other side, but then people are inconvenienced parking all the way and coming this side. Yeah. So people deliberately choose to park there. But we're trying to control that. That's why you found the cars parked on the side and not all over. Before, they would actually park on both sides. But now this time we made sure, at least if they are some people who don't want to park all the way and want to park right next to the stadium. We try to make sure they park here since we can't use the other ground. Because of
you
the
know,
commercial.
later on, I have a question for both of you. Both of you are managing stadiums that are construction sites.
Yeah.
About Dixon wants to say something before Andrew comes in.
Maybe what we can add is that, given the nature of our stadiums, they're constructed next to the main road. But normally, if you go to these big international stadiums, there's what we call the last mile. Cars park almost 5 kilometers far from the stadium. Then there are barricades, so you'll walk to the stadium. You don't come and drive your cars to the stadium. Only those with VVIP stickers will be allowed to reach the stadium.
But you know, Dixon, there's also got to be an issue of discipline. Earlier this year, I had the chance to travel to London, and I went to Stamford Bridge. And I tell you, that stadium is similar to what Nachivo will be if it eventually does happen, because it is surrounded by arcades. But I was also told on match day, the roads around that place are closed.
Absolutely.
But Stamford Bridge is a bit like an arcade. That's only how I would describe it. And probably the stadium right next to Stamford Bridge is only a few kilometers down the road, which is Craven Cottage, where Fulham play their football, is also in the same kind of area. If you've seen Fulham on TV, they not even have dressing rooms inside the stadium. The players have to walk, I think, into a building and then walk into the stadium. So when you mention that about the mile, maybe the modernity that we are trying to embrace is maybe it's no longer even impossible to have a mile radius.
You see now, the stadium in Manchester is an old stadium. But way back, I think 40, 50 years ago.
True.
So modern stadiums, you need to have that component of whatever, having outer perimeter ring, the distance where people cannot approach the stadium. That's a safety.
At least I saw that at Old Trafford,
yes.
It has that distance.
Now we have to work within our means. Whatever we have in Uganda is what we have. So we need to work within those means.
Andrew, I want you to join the conversation. You've been listening to the safety and security officers here. I guess you have an axe to grind with them, because it hasn't always been pretty for you getting into a stadium in Uganda, anywhere else.
Thank you very much, Ismail. I've listened to all the three and quite some impressive submissions. I'll have a question for each of them.
Yeah.
First to Lona. Welcome to Sport Nights.
Her first time on television. We are making her a big star.
Wow, debut. Lona, you're doing some good stuff at KCCA, but would you support a rule from the football authorities that actually goes for points deduction for fan violence? For Jamil, we've been at Nambole for quite some years now. Nambole just took on what's been happening at Nachivubo. Maybe there's at least some money coming from government. Now, we know that the entrance just after the bridge at Nambole, as you're approaching Nambole, is closed off because of the constructions happening. From the road, you see the perimeter fence. We are not seeing what's behind there. Could you tell Ugandans that actually there's something happening at the stadium and that Nambole will come to fruition beyond what you are seeing outside? Then for James Bond Okello, this man who quite famously bought myself and some journalists lunch in Cairo during the AFCON 2019. At least we shared some of the dollars from CAF there. So Dixon Okello, we know that FIFA does not allow tear gas in stadiums. Knowing how our police, sometimes operate, when there's chaos, all the rules and order seem to go through the window. How sure are we that the rule from FIFA protects fans if there is chaos, and are they equipped to actually handle the fans without going militaristic? Thank you.
Okay, let's start with Lona, then Dixon, then Jamil will go last. Lona.
I do not support that, because I believe every club is very much aware of their fan base, and they should be able to control any sort of chaos that would go in. So I do not support any points deduction, because we worked hard for those points.
You know, she's not speaking like a fan. You're supposed to be an officer, an administrator.
I am both a fan and an administrator.
Because we've seen incidents, for example, involving your club, to add to what Andrew is saying, the game between Onduparaka and KCCA.
Yes.
The windows to your bus, to your club bus, were shattered in fan violence. And I know your club was extremely unhappy when the game eventually was rescheduled for replay against what is normally in the rules at the federation.
I will not speak for the club. I'll speak for myself.
For yourself as
Personally, I was very disappointed we had to redo that match, but there's really nothing to do. It was quite unfair.
Quite unfair.
Yes.
Dixon.
Well, maybe I can add to what you said. I think we need to change our mindset. When a fan causes trouble and is taken out of the stadium, you know, most of the time our police will just hold him and take him back to the stands. We should be able to charge them. An incident that happened, you remember, in Port Said when FC
Al-Masri and Al-Ahly, which is now 10 years.
Yes, we had 11 people sentenced to death because of crowd trouble.
Yeah.
A number of people are sentenced to 15 years in jail. So we should avoid that habit of letting people just go after causing chaos in the stadium. They should be able to take them to court and charge them.
And I wanted to stick to that as you respond to that. So it must be time for the police in Uganda to pick an interest beyond throwing out the fun.
Yes.
And that is it.
Yes. Now, the problem we're having in Uganda is that we don't have what we call the football police. In advanced countries like the UK and all that, they have a specific squad that handles football. We need to get our police involved. The way I said you manage riots is not the way you manage a football game. In football, we have what we call the 3 S's. That is service, security, and safety. And these are integrated. I mean, they work together. You need safety in the stadium because people have to come in and feel safe. It's not a war zone. You need security to make sure that whoever causes problems is taken and charged. You need proper service because fans have paid money. They've come to enjoy. They're not there to fight. So these 3 S's have to work together. So we need to involve the police and tell them and security agencies, this is how you're supposed to handle fans. Let's not be rough with them. We need stewards. Stewards are the way to go. With the stewards in the stands, we need them to work with the police. But the police is in the outer ring, stewards in the inner ring. So we need to engage the police constantly. For them not to think that we're trying to isolate them from managing security. But this Stone Age mentality where you need to use brutal force when handling fans who are excited, that should end.
There's Andrew's question for you, Dixon.
Yes.
What was Andrew asking you about?
It's basically what I've just answered now. How do we engage other security stakeholders around that? So we need to constantly engage the police, have proper training. When you're having this towards training, and I was happy when we were in Lira, the RCC was there, the DPC was around. We need to engage government officials. Let them know we're not trying to isolate them in any way. We're trying to say, let's work together as a team. Let our stadiums be safe. It's not a war zone. Let's not overreact when fans get excited. Tear gas is not acceptable in the stadium. For even sex, it's not acceptable. Guns are not acceptable.
I know that the more I see that incident in Indonesia, the more I know it is down to tear gas.
Absolutely.
Those 125 deaths are down to someone throwing tear gas inside the stadium because
it's wrong.
Then everyone is scampering.
Then another thing we need to add, the reason why we're seeing some of these problems is because the police and security agencies are not taken care of. We need to look into the welfare of these people. They're brought in the morning, deployed from morning up to late in the evening. They're not even so sure about the transport going back home. They're not sure about their meals. What do you expect? When there's violence, they will overreact.
The other day I was talking to a gentleman in the military police in the UPDF. He's called Okello. He said he watches this show. So please, Okello, carry this information. I was in Machindi, that's where I met him. And he said he was a viewer, an added viewer of NTV Spotlights. I know he must be watching right now. Now, Jamil, Andrew probably has the most important question for you.
Yes.
Nambole, what is happening? You people chased us away. First of all, the Dixon Okellos of CAF and FIFA said Nambole is not up to standard. So what you people did was to chase us away and say you're going to do something. So you covered the stadium like a shrine. You know, in a shrine you can see the outside, but you can never see the inside unless you pay. Yes, yet with the mosque or a church, you can be able to see inside even before you pay. Now the place is like a shrine. We can't see what is happening. What is happening behind that wall?
First of all, I know people have raised a lot of noise about the wall. The wall is essentially what we are talking about, safety and security. We have to protect the land, and also it's an outer perimeter when we come to match day. So that is a bonus as far as safety and security is concerned. Then 2, the assurances are there. We've started on the renovation.
Of course, you cannot see from the outside like Andrew is saying, but
we cannot see
Because it's a
from
shrine.
the road. It's not okay, for now it appears like a shrine, but 3 months down the road you'll see something different. But inside, we are going to start stripping. I think we've removed the roof. We've started stripping inside, the windows, the doors. The hotel is also part of this phase. For it, it's 100% done in terms of stripping. It's only the procurements which are going to start soon. And then we start the fixtures, because about 60% of the project are installations. For example, the seats, we shall have a 100% seater. The floodlights, we're going to change the gates and even add some more, so that we can have, we can cater for the capacity. People can enter comfortably. There will be electronic. The dressing rooms will be refurbished and made bigger with the seating and the storage. We shall have the media tribune, the press conference room, and also the press room. So it's really going to be a different Nambole. The
You promise that?
I promise. The pitch.
In how long?
The target is 1 year. So around this time, the stadium will be open.
World class Nambole.
Are you around 1 year?
Yes, it's 1 year.
Jamil?
Yes.
It's NTV.
Invite me. After 1 year, invite me. Or we'll actually do it there in the stadium.
You know, Andrew,
and to know that, because we have 3 phases, we are doing phase 1, and you know Uganda is bidding for AFCON 2026.
Yeah.
So we are one of the prime stadiums to be completed.
Andrew, you're my guy. I know you're a stickler for truth and timelines and all. Take note of what Jamila said. And I want to give you a final word on this topic. Then I'm going to give each one of you a word. Then I can let them go. I've enjoyed sitting them here. Andrew.
Maybe just for Jamil, I'm glad he's saying that on camera. And we also know how money comes through from government. It never promises you that it will come on time. So we hope it comes on time. And it's good to know that actually the stadium is coming back, which also is good news for Vipers. They continue hosting us and yeah, making good money from the investment they made. However, Mr. Jamil,
yes,
you know we have another stadium which you can't speak for here that is under construction. We hope this is different, and we hope that whatever you're saying there, because before this stadium, there's a plan, there's a grand plan for Nambole. But when Nambole came to fruition, it wasn't what's in the grand plan. So we hope now that what you're saying is actually what comes through, and this time next year, we are back at Nambole, because even Cranes, the national team, is reeling as the results show.
That's true.
Because of Nambole.
Anyway, I want to allow each one of you one word about the lesson. You know, for an ordinary viewer watching the show tonight, Indonesia is so distant. It's so distant from their minds. But I think many of us have been to a stadium. All of us have been to a stadium and has had violence in Uganda. Actually, when I went to one, I remember a game between URA and Villa. Several years ago, as a young reporter, it was in Lugazi. And I was next to Mr. Sewanyana, the other one, now works with Petroleum, the Petroleum Authority or something, or you know, one of those. By then was URA FC chairman. So he had walked in with his nice grey tie and a white shirt and a red tie. So the tear gas started flying because Villa considered, I think, a penalty that they did not agree with, and the fans threw things, and then police responded, and we all went to the floor. So I felt sorry for him, his white shirt on the floor, very dirty. So when we were leaving the stadium, when we were leaving Lugazi, I told him, you know, the good thing that journalism is a blue-collar job. So we know how to dress for these games. Never come to a football stadium in a white shirt. And I think up to now he hasn't gone to a football stadium in a white shirt somehow. So he got his lesson there. Lona, probably your final word, your lessons from Indonesia and what we should do different. While you come here to speak as part of KCCA, these things that affect KCCA affect everyone else in the league. Very true. Yeah.
We're out of this. I've personally have learned, even the smallest of issues that we're taking for granted at the stadium, we should be more mindful, because honestly there's some things I was letting in happen, but after this scenario I am going to do better with their guidance, of course. Yeah.
Okay, Dixon, before you go to Qatar for the World Cup, these days when I speak to you, the next time we have a conversation, you're on a flight.
Please, let's leave that topic of Qatar for now. That's subject to another issue.
We used to meet eating Morocco-ni. These days you're on flights.
Now we're still going come. I cannot sit with you all the time. Anyhow, I just want to look into the eyes of the IGP and commanders of all agencies. Please let your security officers learn how to deal with the safety and security officers at the stadium. We should look at safety first before enforcing. Enforcement is not the right way to go. Let's avoid using excessive force. And for me and my colleagues, we shall continue training stewards, working with all the stadiums to ensure that our stadiums are safe, people get in safely and they leave out safely. But for now, police, let's stop using excessive force. We don't want to see guns around the perimeter, in the inner perimeter. We don't want tear gas in our stadiums. We're not saying we're getting rid of the police. We still need them there in the plain clothes with the batons, but in the outer ring, but not beating people.
Okay.
Thank you.
Someone actually sends me a reminder that, Lona, you need to take caution, because most of your fans sit on the side next to the China Nanguru Friendship Hospital. And there isn't a proper exit there. So it's something I think when the construction is ongoing. And also reminding that it's Ellis, then you are FC chairman at the time. Jamil, your final word. You manage Uganda's biggest stadium, currently closed. Very important to mention that it's closed. Your final word about this entire safety and security at stadiums, and what must be done for it to improve.
I think, first of all, the sports fraternity, the federations, need to embrace safety and security. At the moment, it's taken as a secondary, a pro bono, something, but it's a key function in the delivery of the sport, whether it's football, netball, basketball, or rugby. So we need to embrace it. We need to employ stewards at all these matches. I know there's a tendency to bring in bouncers, but bouncers are not necessarily stewards unless they are trained. So whoever we are bringing in to protect, to ensure that the fans enjoy the games, they need to be trained. So you have an opportunity to have these people trained. Locally, we have people that have been trained that can transfer this knowledge. So we need to inculcate a culture of safety. Like you said, Indonesia is very far, but when we look back, for me, for example, when I'm in Nambole, I don't watch the 90 minutes. I'm just observing the crowd in case anything happens. So we need to embrace safety and security and complement it with service. There are 3 S's that we need to take note of. So it's a service for us to ensure that people enjoy the game, people are safe, and people are secure.
At the extreme end is Dixon James Bond Okello, formerly a local person, but these days FIFA and CAF safety and security officer and trainer. Thanks for coming to the show tonight. Next to him is the managing director of Nambole Stadium, Jamil Sewanyana. Thanks for coming. And right here next to me is Lona Akeo. She's head of security and match day experience at KCCA FC. We're going to take a break. And when we get back,